Hey, team players, and welcome back. A quick programming note before we get in today's episode. Tomorrow will not be starting at 3:45. We are going to be doing a power hour for all of you, and we're going to let it go from there. So we are so excited to jump into this. Bob will be with us momentarily, and we're going to go from there. George, welcome. I'm 9-3 in first place. Should I trade Bucky and JSN and Derrick Henry? My running backs are Barkley, Gibbs, Benson, Mason. My wide receivers are MHJ, Hopkins, Moore, Waddle, and Amari Cooper. All right. Well, first off, congratulations on being 9-3, controlling your own destiny. That's a very good spot. So, your question being, should you trade Bucky and JSN for Henry? Dude, I love Henry. I mean, there's no way around that. I do think that we nailed this thing completely back in the summer, not to toot my own horn, but we had so much grief for being so high on Henry. And George, I love that we're doing this. So, in terms of what your plan is of getting rid of two to upgrade into a one, 2-for-1s are how you win championships. It's ultimately the way to do this. So that's how I would look at wanting to do this. So when you're done with this trade, it's going to be Barkley, Gibbs, and Henry as your running back stash flex. I absolutely love it. And that's what I want to do for you. So yeah, long story short, George, give me King Henry. I think yourself going to be in a great spot there. You're better off for it. Jesse, love how your first thing is always yo. And I love how you say the whole distance. Great team player, Jesse. All right. Start one. Pacheco in his first game back. Pittman's down, but guarded by Gonzalez, Stevenson, or Cooper. So, Jason, here's the thing here. I'm still concerned about Pittman's back. So that is a very real part of me not wanting to get into the Pittman bandwagon and the Pittman bus. Welcome, Bobby. I'm not sure I want to go all into Pacheco just yet, but looking upon last week, they kind of need to get a stabilized running force, and maybe Hunt just burn out. Hunt is old after all. So looking at this short list, Jason, my lean is Pacheco of those groups there, but Bob, welcome, and jump on in.
Yeah, I mean, right now, as we sit here on Tuesday, Jason, I think that there's a lot of reason to think that all of these guys could be good options this week. My lean right now, as it was yesterday, it is still Pittman. The injury to Downs will free up a good amount of targets. The only thing about Pittman, and it's a similar thing for all of these guys actually, is volume. And with Pittman, there is a very real chance that if Anthony Richardson continues to throw the ball 30-ish plus times a game, 25-ish plus times a game, that Pittman's in line to see between 6 to 9 targets. Whether those targets are good or not is the question when it comes to Anthony Richardson, but they're going to be there. And so as long as Downs is out, and we saw that over the course of the year, Gonzalez is a great cornerback. But what we need to understand is that they're not going to have Gonzalez on Pittman the whole game, right? And so there is going to be
they do. He's the fifth most targeted corner in the league for a reason.
There are going to be opportunities for Pittman to be successful. When it comes to Stevenson, my same issue with Stevenson is the value of the carries. It's a good enough matchup, but it's not like he's going to be in the red zone a lot. And so he's going to have to break off a 30-yard run, and I don't see that happening. And when it comes to Amari Cooper, well, the volume is always a concern for Amari Cooper, right? So then it comes back to Pacheco, and you're not guaranteed the volume in the first game back, and we're not guaranteed that that is going to be his first game back yet. So I think still my lean is on Pittman. And I know we've gotten a lot of questions about these guys over the weekend. That's why I'm kind of taking a longer answer, because Pittman is worth a play this week. And he's especially worth a play because the information that we're going to get we're going to know more by Thursday if Pacheco's going to be suiting up or not. Right. And so then we can make that decision and say, all right, well, Pacheco or Pittman, because I don't think the other two were actual options, despite the good matchup for Stevenson, to be perfectly honest. So, and I think that even if Pacheco's healthy, I could see myself rolling into Pittman, because what we've seen from the Chiefs so far over the last 3 games, while they are a run-centric team, the more and in order for the running back to have more value, they'd have to get into the end zone. But if they're going to be throwing it to Noah Gray or Travis Kelce or DeAndre Hopkins from like 25, 30 yards away, I don't know where those value carries are going to be for Pacheco, especially coming back from the injury. So it's a longer answer, and I know it wasn't a deep dive, but I think it will help out people a little bit more as they start to think about Pacheco and Pittman and Stevenson and Cooper this week, because there are going to be a lot of people with those players. Jesse, good to see you. Tyson, I feel your pain, man. I was talking with Joe last night. I actually had Justice Hill on the bench last night because I also had played a full complement of players, and his concussion and the injury concern was a problem for me. So
you weren't going to start Justice Hill regardless.
I would have considered it over Wan'Dale Robinson. I would have considered it. But when it comes down to it, that touchdown also saved some people that were going up against Derrick Henry. So it works both ways. It sucked. But I was talking with Joe last night. I ended up winning my matchup because Dicker got that last second extra point. And it was a thing of beauty. And immediately my friend sent me a text message and was like, you suck. I hate kickers, ban kickers. And that was like the whole conversation. It was crazy. What I dropped QJ.
Love the deep dives coming in, guys. We're going to start those up in a minute.
So Jesse, QJ had one of the most terrible performances I think we've all seen in the last couple of weeks for a player.
Dude, that was rough. And it's just bad timing that it happened on national TV.
Yeah, and it was catastrophic. 3 drops, 5 targets, 0 yards. And it's not like they were like hospital balls, right?
No, the second one in particular was a touchdown. When he was doing the drag route, there was no one going to catch him.
Yeah.
Like, it was a touchdown he dropped.
So,
and it's someone on the Chargers money line. Let me tell you, not happy about that.
So I would say, in my personal opinion, that when we look at the touchdown rates of both QJ and Westbrook, they're so similar on a similar amount of targets. Outside of QJ's 8 targets, he's always been this year below 5 outside of those 8 targets that he got that one game, I believe. So both players are very similar. And I think that if you feel the need, and I would watch out for the Dobbins injury, because the Dobbins injury did affect, it felt how this game was progressing over the course of this game. There was not a burst from the offense. And so I feel that it would be reasonable for me to go after Westbrook, but I think both players are very similar in that respect, is that the targets are going to be always kind of middling, but they all 3 of these guys, particularly Westbrook and QJ, still have the touchdown percentage in their favor, that I'd be okay with either of these. And Joe has shared multiple times about MVS. The thing about MVS, which you need to watch out for, is the big play. If he's facing a defense that allows a very high A-dot wide receiver, he's most likely going to find success at least once. But his volume isn't that high, and he needs more volume because he is that type of downfield threat that deserves more volume. I think I'd be comfortable on Westbrook, but it really depends on what you feel QJ's outlook is. It's hard to ignore 3 drops.
It is, and that's fair. Some of that is just mental building upon mental, and that is also part of life. If you start getting in your own head, you mess up. I literally was just writing something today using Bettis as my example. That guy has a career; he's a Hall of Fame running back, career fumble rate less than 1%. He knows the entire game's on his line. Arguably, his career's on the line. What does he do? He fumbles because he's thinking about it. That's what happened to QJ. Yep, his last AFC Championship. So when you look at this, Jesse, first off, you put them all in the same tier, great. And since they're all so similar, I back up to what can I look at to differentiate them. Bob did a great thing of breaking down the statistics. My answer is kind of simply, it backs it up. Of the three of them, who has by far and away the best quarterback throwing him the ball? End of discussion. You keep QJ. And that's how I look at it. So we're going to get into our first deep dive, especially
Very
since
good
it came
point.
in before
That's
we
a
kick off
delightful
today.
point, actually.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, you really want Levis throwing you your 5 targets, or do you want Herbert? All right, Joe. 12-man PPR 6-6. So we need some wins. It's go time. Team is Kyler, JT, CMC, CD, Brown, Laporta, or Taysom, Debo, Jamo from the Lions, and Worthy. Question: I will likely need to win out the next 2 to make the playoffs. JT is on a bye on week 14. I don't have another running back. I'm looking to move JT for some depth to get another running back. How do we make this happen? Alrighty. So, very real issue. You have to do it now, obviously, because no one will let you do it next week because they're not going to get anything in return. Looking at this roster, you do have pieces to do compliments with. So I think what I want to do, and you guys might tell me I'm crazy here, but if you have someone who is not needing to win week 14, whether that be they're already in or they're out, and they have the quality running back of, let's just say, Monty or above, what I would, especially if they're missing out on a flex or receiver, I'm pairing JT and either Worthy or JMO. Either one doesn't matter because they're both on your bench. And I'm going to go get a 2-for-1 trade. That's how I'm looking to do this, Joseph. I think it's your best way to go about it. You're not going to significantly upgrade over JT, but at minimum, you're going to get someone who is available.
Well, it isn't about upgrading over JT, Joe. And I think that needs to be very clear.
Well, you can't downgrade. You are going to be in the playoffs.
It's not about downgrading either. It's about looking at the situation. Okay, so JT's production, offensive line has been hurt, quarterback back running the ball. JT should be fine. He's one of the best running backs in the league at what he does, right? But at this point in time, we can't take his situation for granted, knowing that we're making a playoff push and we're 6-6. So where I'm looking at this week and the upcoming weeks ahead. And while the Bills matchup isn't stupendous this week, next week it's much better. And the week after that, it's kind of,
so you're looking at Cook as one of your targets.
Yeah. So what I'm doing is, like, the matchup week 15 against the Lions is going to be rough. Okay. I'm not going to sugarcoat that at all.
There's no way to sugarcoat that.
That one's going to be rough. But he's a guy that could get you into the playoffs. Okay. He could lose you the playoffs in the next week, but he could get you into the playoffs. And the other reason I mention this is that Patriots, Jets are after the Lions. So if you win week 15, you are in a good situation. Okay. So if you win week 15 and you manage to make it to week 16, week 17, your situation has pretty much improved a decent amount. While New England's not like the best and they're not the worst.
No, dude. Here's what I did.
A good matchup.
You're going Buffalo. I'm going for the sell your soul answer. And this is going to take a price tag. I think you get Saquon. Saquon has the best answer moving forward. He plays on week 14. The exception of the Steelers game, which you still need him to play during, which Philly will run through him. So here's how I'm building a trade to get you Saquon. Kyler, Taysom or Laporta, one or the other, and Debo. Do those three, get Saquon.
No, you can't get Saquon for that. In order to get a guy like Saquon right now, you're going to have to pry him out of the cold debt owner's fingers. And most likely, the owner that has him isn't going to give him up for anybody outside of A.J. Brown, CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, Bijan, Kyron, etc. Okay? So I won't even give you that pipe dream because I don't think it's realistic.
Then just switch it out and make it A.J. Brown instead of Debo. He has A.J. Brown.
In order to get Saquon right now, if you want Saquon right now, you're going to have to give up one of those wide receivers, one of those tight ends, and JT.
I'm okay with that. He has excess in all of them.
People aren't going to give him up easy for the playoff push. I think it's more reasonable. In your situation,
I would try Saquon first, Joseph.
I absolutely think that you should at least try, but I don't think it's a reasonable expectation that you would get him. One of the other matchups that I think you could benefit from would be to try to pry away Devin Achane. I know everything that we've said about the Dolphins, but I would be comfortable moving into him for his pass catching ability alone. And what I'm seeing is that they play the Texans December 15th and the Niners December 22nd, which would tell me that it would dictate that at least there's going to be a decent amount of dump off passes. And as long as Tua stays healthy, there's going to be enough targets for Achane to be more than worthy player to go out and get. And you could probably get him for JT and one of those tight ends.
Well, how about this as another option that could work well for you? I don't think you'd have to give up JT to do this, and that's why I think it might be better. I think you could get Tracy, possibly for Debo or JMO. You need him for week 14. He's playing the Saints in week 14. So it's able to be done. I would explore that because, quite frankly, having the 3 receivers as your flex options isn't necessarily an upgrade. Tracy gets you through your week 14 problem without selling your soul. And in most cases, people that are holding Tracy aren't having him in the prestigious starting lineup position anyway. So he should be snaggable.
I mean, the other part of it, before we go to the next couple of questions here, the other part of it, Joseph, is that Bucky Irving right now is a player that his situation, like I mentioned yesterday, it hasn't gotten better. It hasn't gotten worse. But when you look at what's going to happen week 14, the matchup is good enough against the Raiders. The matchup this week, week 13, is good enough. You look at week 15 coming down the pipeline, and it's still pretty good. So you're fighting for a playoff spot, and you're going to be a wild card team most likely if you get in. I think Bucky, I think Rashad potentially are great options that you aren't going to have to sell your soul to go out and get.
You could put Rico Dowdle in that category as well. He's playing Cincinnati in week 14.
Yeah.
And Cincinnati doesn't stop the run at all.
Dowdle's a good play this week too. From what I can see so far. I'd have to take a look at a couple.
So there's Joe. We just gave you a bunch of options, some cheap, some expensive. It all depends on how much of your team you want to trade away. My overall analysis is your starters are set. You do have certainly capabilities for a 2-for-1 or a 3-for-1 trade, especially looking at those extra flex pieces and tight end that you have. So I'm not afraid to combine JT into one of them. But if you want to keep JT, there's always that option of going about with it.
Yeah, and you could go after Bo Nix too as a quarterback if you want to. Go after the owner with Bo Nix and a running back and shoot them Kyler and one of your other players to move into something good there.
Yeah, make it a 3-for-2. Make it a little fun. All right, Bob, let's get into the next quick hit.
All right, where are we at? I thought you were going to do it. When you say that, I'm like, oh, okay, you're going to do it.
Oh, okay. If I'm in charge of the stick, you just got to let me know that. I got it for the rest of the day.
John, Connor Stevenson, Brian Robinson, if he plays. So there's many ways to go about this. I think that realistically speaking, Brian Robinson can't be played. Okay. Especially understanding how the Titans have been playing recently, and the game plan for a Brian Robinson blow-up game doesn't necessarily fit well with the way that they're going to have to attack the Titans here.
That being said, which one of these are attractive, though?
Well, that's what I'm looking up right now to tell you.
Because Connor's whole single-digit thing is growing really old for me.
Well,
and
Connor,
I don't want to keep going down that road. And I know Stevenson's done. I know New England's done. So, like, part of me is just looking at this and saying, all right, I don't want to put up Connor again, especially against Minnesota. Washington, I get it. Tennessee's playing good, but they're also just played against Houston as no offensive line. So, I look at it like this. You're a 7-point favorite. They should be moving the ball. They're going to put up more points. Probably about the same amount of points realistically as Arizona. But there's no other I'd lean Robinson. I mean, long story short, trying to get to this as a quick hit. That's the direction I would go.
Yeah, I mean, I think realistically, I'm not comfortable with this decision.
No, it's not a comfy one.
I do think, John, that Connor is a potential play this week. For everything that I've said about Minnesota, the Vikings defense, everything that I've said about that is absolutely unequivocally true. They have a very good rush defense, but it's a better team.
It is. And unless Connor gets checkdowns, I don't see it working out for him, though. Because, again, as I have said against Kyler Murray, and this part does definitely stand true, he's going to be distracted this week. And when he is distracted, he fails. End of discussion. So I look at that and say, I'm not really interested in doing that. So I'd lean Robinson, but that's my take there.
Yeah.
Quincy.
Yeah. If he wasn't hurt. Sorry, go ahead.
It's all good. First place, 3-9. Love it. So basically, you can lose your way into the playoffs. That's always a cool thing. You got Kyron and Corum for the playoffs. Your other running back is Algier. Your tight ends are McBride and Disley. Do I drop Disley and cuff the waiver of Ray Davis, Jordan Mason, and Spears to keep what I have? Okay. So first question, do you want to cut Disley? You have McBride, so that's certainly a spot you could. I'm assuming your waiver wire's over, or your trade deadline's over, and that's the only reason you'd consider this, because Disley does have trade value. If that's the case, if I had to pick from that group of potential cuffs, it would be Mason, no doubt. But if you can trade Disley, I would trade Disley. But that's just where I'm at. Bob, where are you at?
Yeah, so I do think that when it comes to your situation, Quincy, that with McBride there, McBride's going to be your starter, and you take away that decision of Disley. Disley had a good enough game, but not the game that we were hoping for yesterday, because Herbert was throwing the passes to Jalen Reagor, which was like really weird to see. I think that out of those players, if one of them were to, if CMC were to get hurt, Jordan Mason, we saw what he could do.
It's amazing.
Okay? I mean, it's fair. We also have seen great games when given the opportunity out of Ray Davis. Ray Davis looks really explosive. Okay. So if you are looking for better matchups down the line
to me, I look at who's more likely to get hurt. I think it's CMC.
Yeah. And that's the other piece of it too. I think that if you're going to stash anybody, Jordan Mason is most likely to get hurt. But for that respect too, Tony Pollard does have the chance to do that as well. But I'd rather have Mason out of those three guys, Quincy. There's lots of reasons why. But if you can't trade Disley, if you can't trade him, then you got to drop him, pick up Mason. I think Mason's worth a better hold for you than Disley is right now, especially in your situation.
Alrighty. Josh Downs and Debo. I'm thinking of a waiver for Ridley and Lamb. So I'm assuming you mean trade instead of waiver. And if you can get Downs and Debo for Lamb and Ridley, I certainly would take Lamb and Ridley. That's 100% what I would
Craig,
do.
I'm not quite understanding the question. So if you could,
it has to be a waiver-based trade like baseball. I mean, that's what it has to be.
If you could retype it in the chat, I'm not quite understanding that question, but I do agree with Joe. Lamb and Ridley are a lot more attractive right now than Downs and Debo. Jason, both of these guys are worth starts, okay? Both of them are worth starts this week. When it comes down to which situation you would want, what is better, one of the things to look at is just target share, right? Jonnu has been one of the top targets on Miami this season.
He
and
has.
there's no reason for that to change this week. Ertz, on the other hand, has had a good target share on his team. Both of these players have a good grasp of their team's total touchdown percent. And I think both could be in great positions this week. My lean would be Jonnu. I think that he's the more attractive option out of the two, but both are really good options this week. Just on sheer volume.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Who to start? London, Sutton, Debo, Harrison, Brees, Pacheco, Najee, Chuba, Pitts, Disley, Schoonmaker. All right, so
there's a lot to
work in
unpack
reverse
here,
here.
Paulo.
You're starting Disley. From the backs, Bob, are you on Team Pacheco or not this week?
I have to hear more, guys. I really do. I would be on Team Pacheco if he plays, but I can't realistically walk into this week saying that he is going to play for sure, because we were made privy to that information last week and said everybody's and all of the outlets were like, he's going to play, and he didn't. And I think with the 4 game, I think that we're going to know by Thursday, which is a good thing, if he's going to play or not. Most likely, if he plays, he's a good start.
It'll run right through the Raiders.
If he plays, he's a good start, and you have to start him if he plays. So even in a limited capacity, I think that he's worth a start.
I think Hunt's also kind of fallen apart too. I mean, it might be part of the fact that his line's been getting pushed back. The Kansas City line's definitely showing issues that we haven't seen in a while, haven't been publicly talked about in a while. And so I look at this and say my backs would be Pacheco. Oh my God, I don't want to pick a Jet, but I'm going to pick a Jet. Brees. Yeah. And then Sutton's been having a really good at receiver, so he's going to be one of my 2 receivers here. I think he's got a good matchup here. Again, I don't want to touch Harrison for all the Kyler hate I keep giving. And if Purdy doesn't play, the answer has to be London. So
I think the answer is London. I think the answer is London regardless. I think it's London, Sutton.
Otherwise, he would have been the flex.
I'm very easily on London and Sutton. I mean, you could the stranglehold that they have on targets within their offense is so ridiculous.
It is.
That if you get the targets and they're not hospital balls, you're going to be successful. And if you win this week, following that, we have as fantasy players been killed by volume before. QJ got 5 targets, didn't catch any of them. That's going to happen. Josh Downs had 3 more targets in that game that got called back by penalties. That's going to happen. But if you follow the targets on teams that are passing the ball a lot and have the opportunity to continue to pass the ball a lot, you're going to be in a good situation. When I look at this, I see the Broncos versus the Browns. And while Sutton himself might not have the most elite matchups, the situation is good because Bo Nix should be able to throw for at least 250. And when you look at what Sutton has been doing, plus his ability to get touchdowns, that's riding me into at least 12 points from Sutton. At least. When you look at London's in a situation where if Kirk Cousins is going to be able to throw for 250, 350, something in that range, then London, who gets a high volume of targets, is going to be successful. So I think I'm easily on those 2, no questions asked. When it comes to the running backs, this is a different situation because the volume for these players is going to be there, but the matchups aren't all the best. I think what my lean would be is the three players that I'd play as flexes this week, or as running backs and flexes this week, would be Brees, Pacheco, and Chuba. The reason Chuba...
Yeah, that's right. That's the ones I was going with too.
is because Chuba's volume, even with Brooks there, his volume is still good. And he had a good enough game against a good Chiefs defense, and now he's facing one of the worst run defenses in the league. So I think that I am very much on Chuba right now before I look into the numbers anymore. And then it comes down to the tight ends. And I think it's fair enough that what I said about London is also true about Pitts in terms of volume. But Disley's volume wasn't bad this week either. I mean, it wasn't great. He was struggling for a little bit of that game because they were passing the ball to randos, but it was still there. But Schoonamaker is an interesting option here because the matchup on paper isn't great, but if the targets are there, he should continue to be successful. But I don't think that I could start Schoonamaker over Disley or Pitts, and I think that I'm waffling on those tight ends. I don't think I could pick one today, but if I were to pick one, I think that I'd be on Disley over Pitts, but it's super close for me.
Sound good, Disley over Pitts too. All right, Lipsy, we're going to do your first quick hitter, do a deep dive, then come to your second quick hitter. First quick hitter, two-man flex, Monty Cook, Jennings, Devontae Smith. I'm going Monty and Jennings. Maybe Monty Cook. Definitely Monty.
This is a good one, actually.
This is first world problems is what this is. This is the opposite of what John was giving us.
If Monty plays, Monty is the start.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. Unequivocally, the start. If he doesn't play, then I would be, right now as we sit on Tuesday, I'd be on Cook and Jennings. Jennings' volume was still good enough. Now, the matchup isn't incredible on paper for Jennings, but it's not terrible either. So I think right now as we sit that I would be right there.
So Jason with a DD of start these four or any of these four. Tracy, CD, Harrison, Adams, DJ Moore, Cooper, and Pittman. Oh, all right. So the first couple get easy, then we get hard. So I'm starting Tracy. I'm starting Tracy this week. I'm in a situation in my league where I need a win to get in, and Tracy's going to be one of my dudes. Mm-hmm. So, full transparency on my Tracy answer there. And love CD. So no way I'm not starting CD.
So I have a qualifier for CD. I just read today while I was on my break that Cooper Rush might be out.
Wait, what?
So he got a knee injury, and the report stated that they're not sure what's going on there, and Trey Lance might have to start.
If Trey Lance's career is on the line, which it would be, then how's he not giving the ball to CD 40 times?
Hold on. Then I read that DeVito picked up an undisclosed injury as well and is not guaranteed to start on Thursday either. So
what? This is going to make a 13-point game?
This game might feature Drew Lock and Trey Lance. So if Cooper Rush plays, I have no problem starting CeeDee Lamb. I
don't think I have a problem regardless. It's this is Thanksgiving. He is Jerry's boy. Jerry boy get fed.
Yeah, I can't see myself not starting CeeDee Lamb in any scenario coming up this week. So
the Giants have corners.
I'm definitely on CeeDee, and I'm definitely on Tracy. I think that Tracy is going to get back the volume that he didn't get, and we talked about this yesterday when we were talking about Tracy versus Singletary as well. He's the best skill position player not named Malik Neighbors on that team, and they have to give him the ball.
Yes, they do.
CD then is another start. I think I'm out on Harrison this week. Harrison's numbers are better against man coverages, which the Minnesota Vikings play a lot of zone. So I'm not sold on Harrison this week. He could have a good game, but I'm just not sold on him on the stat sheet. So coming down then with Adams here, it's not terrible. I mean, his volume has been incredible, right? His volume has been absolutely incredible. So with me saying that, I think that if he's getting upwards of 8 to 13 looks a game, that can't be ignored. So
basically, stand alone, it probably can't be ignored, but it certainly can't be ignored against the rest of the competition of this list.
Yeah, so I'm on Tracy, CD, and Adams for sure out of those four. So then it comes down to Moore, Cooper, and Pittman.
And
And I
Harrison.
think no, Harrison's out.
Harrison's out. All right, Harrison.
I'm out on Harrison. I think that the next one up would probably be Pittman for every reason that I've said earlier today in the live.
It's gonna be cold in Buffalo.
And it could be like this could be one of those positions where like we're lulled back into a, oh, by the way, Adonai Mitchell's going to get 12 targets and Pittman's going to get 2, which
could happen.
I mean, we've been here before with Michael Pittman. We've been here before. The only problem,
Pittman's going to drop to like an 8th round pick next year, right?
The only problem that I have with Pittman is he's not getting volume. And if he does, I think he'll be fine. And with Downs out, the likelihood that he soaks up at least 2 or 3 of Downs' targets, which would then put him somewhere in the mix for between 6 to 10 targets, he could be able to do something with 6 to 10 targets, I think. I honestly,
I think so too.
Yeah. So Jason, for all those reasons, I think that I'm definitely on those guys, and I'm out on Elijah Moore. Yeah.
Whether it's Elijah or DJ, you're out on him.
Oh, is it DJ Moore? Hold on.
I'm out on him regardless.
Is it DJ Moore, Jason? If it's DJ Moore,
you're not picking him over Detroit.
If it's DJ Moore, I might be able to convince myself DJ Moore is a better play than Pittman.
I'm not. All right, Bob and I give you different answers if it's DJ Moore. Otherwise, we're the same 4. Tracy, CD, Adams, and Pittman. All right, Ayush, your book and a half will be our next deep dive, followed by Jesse. But let's get back into the quick hitters. Ayush, I love you. Thank you for writing everything. It makes the details are better. That did not mean that to come off negative. But that's what will be up next. Lipsy, you're back up here with the quick hit. Should I drop Jerry for Addison or just keep with Jerry? Bob, where are you at?
So we're talking Jerry Jeudy.
I'm assuming.
I think both are worth keeping. I think both are worth having on your team. I think that
you can't.
I understand that, but I understand that both are worthy of having on a team. Where I would kind of fall on this is back into the conversation we had yesterday about Addison, right? Is that his volume is going up-ish as we've gone through games. But it really has been looking like Jerry Jeudy has been, I mean, outside of Tillman, has been a favored target for
yeah, all 3 of them are basically getting the same amount of target share. Like Cleveland's only throwing to 4 people, which is cool.
I'm okay taking a player with a quarterback that wants to chuck the ball unequivocally. And Tyler talked about Jerry Jeudy last week, and I was out on Jerry Jeudy. Jason, I'll get back to that, but I was out on Jerry Jeudy last week because of the weather. And when you look up his target share, Tyler was absolutely unequivocally right. The target share is insane. And he has a good chance to get touchdowns.
The one problem you have with Jeudy this week, though, and this might be why you're even considering it, is they're going to be playing Denver, and he's going to get blacked out of that game because they're not putting the corner on Tillman. They're going to put him on Jeudy. Judy's the one they know.
Yeah.
That's one of the few teams that has a corner you actually have to pay attention to like that. But so, I think I would go with Addison for this week, probably knowing no one else is going to pick up Jeudy. Then you have the same conversation in your head next Tuesday.
Yeah, I think Addison, like Joe said, I do think that Addison is a good enough play this week for sure. And when it comes to Jeudy, I do think that Jeudy is worth a play, but the Patrick Surtain bubble is always a problem. So if you go with Addison, will you be upset about losing out on Jeudy? Maybe, but Addison's most likely the better start over Jeudy this week because of Yeah, because of the effect there. And Jason, it was DJ Moore. Okay, so here's for anybody wanting to look at DJ Moore, and one of the things to look at, and I was talking with Joe about this yesterday, is that if Caleb Williams is able to pass the ball 32 to 40 times against the Detroit Lions,
which he will.
DJ Moore will have a game. Okay. However, Detroit has looked better in their pass rush in recent weeks. They can stop the run. And I will say this, if they do stop the run, Caleb Williams will have to pass the ball.
He will, because they're going to be losing
30 plus times a game. And so where I fall on this then is that knowing how many targets DJ Moore soaks up in this offense when Caleb throws the ball a lot, I would be unequivocally okay pivoting from Pittman to DJ Moore.
To live with that. Still bad quarterback.
I wouldn't pivot off the other guys that I said unless Cooper Rush was injured or was seriously injured. And as Tyler said here, and as I said earlier with the knee injury, I can't bring myself, even though CD, to start him with Trey Lance. I don't know.
I'm definitely sorry. Dude, I think I'm more encouraged to start CD Lamb with Trey Lance. He might get 25 targets.
Craig, you can pick those up on your waivers. Yeah, I'm picking up both, man. I don't know how. Yeah. I understand, you're in your league, the way your league is set up. Your league, you don't trade. So yeah, if Lamb is somehow on waivers and Ridley is somehow on waivers, you're dropping Josh Downs and Debo to pick him up, no doubt.
So, Bob, I've always wanted to do this. I don't think any one of our team players is doing this, but the concept is it's a 32-man league, and it's a 16-man, 1-6 team league, and whoever's in last place in terms of points for in a given week, they get kicked out of the league, and all their players become free agents.
I've seen like guillotine leagues that are kind of like that, where you have to give up.
That's exactly what I mean. Yeah,
or like you can get
I'm interested in doing one of those. It's all about fab and waiver construction.
Yeah, so let's get to this question here.
Jesse should be next. Oh, sorry, you had it up. Yeah.
So,
sorry, that was a random digression I just hit us with. It kind of like threw your mojo off. So you have Kyler and Russell Wilson at quarterback. Running backs are Cooks, Gibbs, Monty, Pacheco. Should I trade Monty for Herb? I'm not getting rid of Monty, man.
No, Jesse. And Jesse, here's the thing that I want to ask you. Looking on your waiver wire, what is the quarterback situation? Okay, because if you're in a league that holds two quarterbacks, there's a very realistic chance that Geno is still on your waiver wire. He's worth a start this week. Jameis Winston is probably still on your waiver wire somewhere along the line. Levis is probably still on your waiver wire somewhere
along the line. Trey Lance might be worth a start.
Trevor Lawrence is probably still on your waiver wire.
Dude, I think I'd rather start Lance than Lawrence. If Lance is starting, because he'll panic and run for his life and throw the ball to CeeDee Lamb. He might be the best thing ever.
Yeah, Tyler. Sorry about that, Tyler. No, we got you, Tyler. You're the next. It looks like you're the next one up here. So we didn't skip Tyler, right? We're right. We're right on cue.
He's down. He'll be 2 out for his first quick hitter. Thoughts on Coleman?
Yeah, we got you, Tyler. So I think that I wouldn't trade Monty for Herbert. I would like to get into Herbert, but I wouldn't do that. I would look at my waiver wire, see what the best options are. Tell us what the best options are, Jesse, and we can give you a little bit of look ahead on that. Was thinking on dropping Brooks for Dowdle or Gus. Lipsy, I would do that this week for Dowdle. I think
do it this week for Gus.
Dowdle's matchup this week is decent. It's a decent matchup in a week that's going to be a little bit nasty for the Giants in Dallas for sure. And Gus totally has credibility this week if Dobbins isn't going to play.
Yeah.
Doesn't look like he will because of the knee injury.
You might get 2 weeks out of him. But that might be all you need.
Yeah, it's definitely worth thinking about this week for sure. Um, I would be okay with either, to be honest with you. I think it's dealer's choice on which matchup you like better because I think that they're both pretty good matchups. Tyler, thoughts on Coleman versus Myers?
So Tyler, this
Yeah.
question has basically been bouncing in my brain since like June 10th. And the long story short, and I have gone many area different rounds. There are times where I'm much bigger on Myers and was much bigger on Colbert or the Coleman. So the overall fears with Myers was he wouldn't get enough target share because of Adams. Well, that went away. And he's been getting a lot of targets, and it's been pretty nice. He's been giving some good returns. Coleman, we look at his start of the season, he was an all or nothing type guy. He was low volume. If he got in the end zone, it was great. But then he started getting a little bit more volume as it came to two. But the problem is with him being out for 3 weeks now, they figured out how to play without him. And that offense hasn't tangibly changed in terms of A, winning, but also B, how it's winning. So I look at it, and this might seem crazy to say, but I think Myers is more integral to his team than Coleman is. Despite the fact that Coleman normally went a round or two higher than Myers. So I would look at this and say, right now I'd go Myers, but I liked it a whole hell of a lot more when Minshew was under center.
Yeah, and that's Tyler's opinion as well, it seems. So, I mean, I think with AOC that we're probably going to see a lot more targets for Brock Bowers. With Ritter, it's kind of dealer's choice on what's going to happen with Ritter because, I mean, he is an unexpected
with Ritter, I'm just taking the other defense because they're going to catch more than Myers.
I do like Myers. I do like Myers a lot, but I think that the volume, I think that Myers is a volume play. Coleman has always been a play that you're going for big play potential in terms of a touchdown or a fair share of air yards and stuff. Like
Tyler,
that.
I basically look at it like this: like Coleman's playing an inside number on roulette, and Myers is betting the outside. Do you want to stand around longer, moving lower money, or when it hits, do you want to cash in? Because that's basically the difference between the two.
Yeah, and Tyler, in terms of this discussion about tight ends this week, one of the things that I think is probably Joe and I talked about this a little bit after we were on air yesterday about Dobbs' concussion, and a beneficiary for that will be Tucker Kraft.
It will be.
Tucker Kraft will soak up a couple more targets, and hopefully he can do a little bit more with them. Otten, I'm not too worried about Otten this week, but I will say that I am concerned that he did not see enough targets this past week with Mike Evans there and them running the ball like almost exclusively for most of the game. And again, they're going to be able to do that again this week. So both matchups are really good, but I do think that Jacobs will be able to run on this Dolphins defense as well. So I think that both of these tight ends have similar optics when it comes to potential points. I don't see them skating by anywhere like lower than 8 points apiece. But I really realistically don't see a pathway unless it includes a touchdown for them to get over 15 PPR points. So my lean would be Kraft. I'd be okay rolling Kraft on Thursday, but I could understand you wanting to wait for Otten. I think Kraft's volume might be a little bit better this week. But both have put up crappy weeks in recent memory. So
I would go with, that's true. Again, I was big on trading Kraft earlier. With Evans back, I'm definitely going to be on Kraft due to, I think, the volume concern.
And Kraft does have a nice fair of touchdown potential as well.
Austin, you'll be the quick hit we return to. Ayush,
we got to finish Tyler's question here.
Sorry, I answered this one in my head. No doubt it's Edwards, dude. You got to go on the Gus bus. He's going to be a starter. The other one isn't.
Yeah, I mean, McNichols could be the starter. I do recommend picking up McNichols if you have the opportunity to, but I would, knowing what happened with Dobbins last night, Gus Edwards would be a really good play moving forward if he were to be injured for a long period of time.
Okay, Ayush, I'm basically going to treat this as one long quick hitter, and if I mess it up, Bob will let me know. first 7 games being 3-4, I'm going to assume you're 6-4. Or have Allen, Saquon, Chase, Tyreek, Zay, Laporta, Pickens, Aubrey, Cora, Mostert, Tracy, Tua, Disley, and Kraft. I need some guidance because I'm locked.
He's 8-4.
To play 8-4. Okay, that's a typo. And the deadline is week 14. So let's go make some last second money here. I'm planning on selling Tyreek or Flowers, Tracy, Laporta for a piece. Let me know what are realistic targets and what I should do with my team for team development. Pieces for a star or capable. I was fine with letting Tracy go because Saquon and Chase Brown were holding it right now.
Yep.
I also have Pickens plus the Tyreek and Zay. My receivers are completely cool. And rotating between Kraft and Disley and my tight ends, is there something I can live with right now?
Yeah.
I don't know. Tyreek's producing, and seeing Lamb's bomb just crushed his soul. All right, so obviously I didn't read that one verbatim, but you get the core concept, Bob. Let's make this thing awesome. So if he's willing to get rid of Tyreek or Zay, starting point, I would get, although you're already in the playoffs, I think that Tyreek gets you more value because he's already had his bye. If I'm looking at upgrading his team, let's just start with what would you upgrade as the starting point of this conversation, Bob? What do you want to upgrade?
Okay. All right. So we see all the questions in the chat. We'll definitely get to all of them. I think that what I'm doing is I'm making a stronger flex play. Okay. So
Okay.
I like Saquon and I like Chase Brown. I like Tyreek and I like Zay. I also like Pickens. I think that any 3 of those wide receivers, if I had 2 of them starting, that I'd be really happy with them on a week-to-week basis.
Mm-hmm.
Again, Zay and Tyreek, the floors and the ceilings for all 3 of those guys is very similar in my mind, at least for this season. So what I see on your bench with Tua, Disley, Kraft, Tyrone Tracy, Mostert, etc., are players that, with Disley, Kraft, and Laporta, you're willing to move. You said you were willing to move Laporta, Zay, Tyreek, and who was it here?
It was Chase Brown.
And Tracy for a piece. So I would try to unload those guys, and I would take a look at matchups moving forward, matchups that looking at the playoffs. So I'm going to go straight to week 15. And I'm just going to look at some matchups for week 15 because you're in the playoffs. You're not worried about it. I believe at some point in time, you might have had Gibbs. Gibbs is
he definitely had Higgins. I definitely remember this team with Higgins and him moving Higgins, which is good form, by the way.
You definitely have the option to go after Gibbs. I think at least for week 15, I think a good flex play option week 15 for your team would be Chuba. And I like Josh Jacobs week 15.
Holy shit.
So those guys would be some of the pieces that I would look at if I was just looking at 15. If I'm looking at week 15 and week 16, I come back to Gibbs and Jacobs again. Then coming down to it again, and this is just some quick stuff to just get your brain thinking about how you'd like to attack this. And then week 17, both those players kind of fall a little bit in my book. And you have the potential of, your Bijans, your Bucky Irvings, etc. You also have a continual frame of reference for a guy like Derrick Henry. And I believe maybe at one point in time, you had Henry there. So as I see it, Ayush, where I would want to make a move is to try to attack and get one of those running backs and stick them in the flex. And particularly, I do like Jahmyr Gibbs because the passing work is also there. So I think that he is a priority for your team, that if I could go out there and get a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs with what I have on my team right now, I would totally try to do it. I realize that that's most likely not going to happen, but that would be a target for me. I understand that the target of Jacobs after a huge game is probably going to cost you a little bit more, but it is worth it in the short term and the long term for your team. You could, if somebody's worried about the Brian Robinson injury at all, you could put a piece down on the table, not give up a lot, and say, hey, I'm willing to take him off your team if you want to take this piece here. I'm also okay, and I can't remember exactly, Ayush, if you've had Breece Hall at all. I'm okay on moving into a guy like Breece or Devin Achane as well. I think that those would be the guys that I would target, and I don't think that there's another guy outside of maybe James Cook that I would target for that stretch run. You may, in a trade for Gibbs, you might have to give up a guy like Josh Allen, and you might not be wanting to do something like that. But I think where my head's at right now is that making a volume play, at making your team be about good volume, I think is a good position to be at right now at this point in the year. And looking at Zay's volume, it's a little bit of a struggle to find out on a week-to-week basis if he's going to, how that's going to turn out. But
yeah, that part is true.
But I do think that a combination of Tyrone Tracy and Tyreek at this point should be at least consideration for somebody that owns Gibbs. I also think that it's more than enough consideration for somebody that owns Jacobs. And I think that would be how I would move on this point, Ayush.
So Ayush, I'm going to go a little bit different direction than Bob here. So given what you said you wanted to trade, looking particularly at Zay and Tracy, knowing that they're coming out of your lineup, I need to replace them with an upgrade. And a guy who I've really warmed up on as the season has progressed, and mostly because I'm looking at his playoff lineup here, I think he's going to dominate, is going to be London. London is a guy with incredible volume, and his playoff lineup is this: Vegas, Giants at home, Washington. Those are teams they should be able to throw all over. So you get the inconsistency of Zay off your books. And again, if you're using Tracy to get it over the hook, you might be able to get an extra piece there to, you can either go, but London would be the main target of the trade. You might even be able to do Zay for London laterally. The other thing that I would recommend to you, and I recommend this to everyone, if you're having a 2 tight end snazoo, who do I start this week? Kraft and Disley are a perfect example. Take whichever one you don't like as much and turn them into Gesicki. Say this for 2 reasons. First and foremost, out of sight, out of mind, and he's cheap. So when you combine all of that, we look at the fact that great probability Higgins will not be playing in the playoffs. You'll have Gesicki as your roster because when Gesicki plays, he's a home run at your tight end spot. So I'd give you 2 trades here, Ayush. First being Zay and Tracy to turn into Flowers, and the second being whichever one of those 2 tight ends you don't like, turn them into Gesicki. That's how I would want to do it, given Flowers' lineup of Vegas, New York, and Washington as their playoff teams. London should be able to bring it home. And I think you'd be able to do it for Flowers London, straight up. But if you need to throw Tracy in, you can.
London's a good choice. Didn't even think of that. But that's definitely a good choice.
So you're too busy trying to get your elite running backs. And I'm never going to hate on getting an elite talent. But if you're getting rid of Flowers, you got to get your answer was basically just make Pickens your second receiver. I was looking at there. Yeah. So deep dives left. I'm seeing Jesse is the next one up there. Austin, you are a current quick hitter. The guy offered me Jennings for Reed, ended up accepting my counter offer, which was JSN for Reed. I got JSN in the deal.
Chef's kiss. One of the things that I like about both Jennings and JSN, and the one thing that, I like I said, I'm absolutely unequivocally a Reed supporter. But when it comes down to what we need out of wide receivers, it's targets, and it's the amount of targets they get a game. It depends on how many yards their quarterback is going to throw, and if they have the chance to get a touchdown. Jennings' chance to get a touchdown is a little bit higher than JSN's chance to get a touchdown in more recent memory. But I love what you did here. JSN is going to
Mhm.
be a nice scoop for you moving through the playoffs, moving into your playoffs here. And Tyler, we've talked about this for weeks. We've talked about this for weeks with Pacheco. It's that he's not there yet. He's not there
Well,
yet.
he has to be there. His window's almost about to
Not
close, in
there
which case
yet.
he'll be out for the whole year. They kind of have to.
Yeah, Craig, you're doing that, Craig. You're picking up both. And with the injury to Downs and Debo playing not as well, these two guys are much better to have on your
Not to
team. The
mention the
volume
injury
is
to
there for
Purdy.
both. Jesse, if you win this week, you're locked in the first seed. I love that. Should I start Dallas D or the Commanders D? You can't not start Dallas's defense this week.
You have to.
You
Even
have
if DeVito's playing.
You have DeVito or Drew Lock playing. Okay.
Either way, it says pick six.
You also have a game where the defense is probably going to be on the field a decent amount and it has the ability to cause turnovers. Dallas just got also 2 return touchdowns last week. So if you're looking for sheer scoring potential from either of those two,
they're not getting embarrassed again on national TV.
It's Dallas. I mean,
yeah.
I can't give you a reason to support the Commanders this week because what we've seen out of Will Levis in recent weeks hasn't been the Will Levis. Has been a Will Levis.
He did throw a pick six last week and got sacked like 20 times.
He can, but I'm saying Dallas can sack you as well. I'm
going Dallas. I mean, it's flat out. I mean, Dallas is the answer. It's quality of competition. You just can't do anything else about that.
In terms of this discussion here, if Montgomery's playing, I'm starting both Detroit running backs.
Yeah.
If Monty is playing, we have seen games where Detroit has had their running backs, another game last week, the game the week before, where both running backs have the potential for just sheer volume. And it's crazy. If Monty's not healthy, I would pivot to Cook in your situation because I don't know the health of Pacheco yet. So it's Gibbs and Monty for me right now. If Monty ends up being not healthy or clear to play, then I pivot into Cook. If Monty doesn't play, thoughts on
thank you for translating that because I was never getting that
on Josh Ryland. It's worth considering a second Detroit running back if Monty doesn't play, but I don't think that we can make that decision until Wednesday night, Thursday. But just so everybody knows, I mean, like, this matchup on paper is the best for running backs this week. The best. Okay. So if you have a Detroit running back, you have to play them. Like, it's not even a choice. And
yeah, I mean, that's the way it is. I mean, you don't really need to go much deeper than that.
Yeah.
Do you trust Murray this week? Because I may need him to play if Purdy's out. Listen, dude, that's desperate times, any port in a storm, any cliche you want to use. But the reality is, hell no, I do not trust Caleb Murray this week.
I don't see, and this is speaking, like Tyler was speaking as a Pacheco owner. This is speaking as a Kyler Murray owner in a 2-quarterback league. He's one of those players, and this is something that you need to understand about him, is that Joe has told you many things about Kyler Murray in the past, and I've told you many things about Kyler Murray in the past. But one of the things is that you have to understand as a Kyler Murray owner that you're never starting Kyler with confidence.
No, you're not.
Okay. So asking me if I trust them, I don't. Would I play him? I could convince myself to. He plays better against man. Vikings don't do that. So the matchup isn't great. It wasn't good last week either, and he sucked. So he is a very much a matchup-dependent, volume-based quarterback on a team that is struggling right now. I mean, the defense looks good, and he has had players drop touchdowns or like not catch them or go farther. So there's a lot on Kyler. There's a lot on the coaching staff, and there's a lot on the other players in this room. Out of the players that are probably on your waiver wire. Does Kyler give you the best chance to put up 15, 20 plus points? Maybe. But do I trust him? No, absolutely not. And I've never trusted him this whole year. I still do think that, if he had the right situation, he could be a top 5 quarterback, but it just never seems like it's the right situation, which we don't need to get into that right now because we've gotten into that so many times before.
Neighbors, J. Jeff, Jennings, Tank Dell, Cooper Kupp, Pollard, Tracy, Hunt, and Pacheco. 2 backs, 2 receivers, and 2 flexes. So the 2 receivers, you're starting J. Jeff and Neighbors. You just have to. So you're also starting Kupp because you have to. I'm going to go with
Kupp for sure.
Tracy as one of the backs. And then Pacheco if he plays. And now I have 1 flex spot remaining between Tank Dell, Jennings, and Pollard. Oh, man. Probably Tank. Probably, although Tennessee doesn't stop anyone. Probably Tank, though. I think that's going to be my answer there.
So,
because Jacksonville doesn't stop anyone either.
I'm with Joe. Jefferson is definitely a must play this week. His matchup is better this week. Then coming down to Neighbors. Again, as I said yesterday, I don't think that Neighbors can cut an interview like that and they don't give him the ball more than they did last week. I don't think they could do that because it would be irresponsible and they would all lose their jobs, and they're probably already losing their jobs.
Yeah, they are anyway, dude. What's your point?
So with that being said, Neighbors is definitely on my list to play for that. For that singular reason alone. Then with Cooper Kupp also is a must play against a very banged up Saints secondary, secondary for the Saints. So those 3 wide receivers need to find your way into the lineup. So Jefferson, Neighbors in the starting 2 wide receivers, Kupp in your flex. Then coming down to the running backs there, I think Pollard is a play. Is he a great play? Not really. But again, what Joe said last week rings true. If the volume is there, you cannot ignore the volume that Tony Pollard gets, because that line is so bad that Tony Pollard has to just elevate himself to be better.
That's right.
For the, I would look at the Spears injury, and if Spears is out again, Pollard's a smash. Okay?
Yes.
Tracy also, I believe, is another great play this week. So I'm starting those 2 running backs for sure. So then it comes down to my flex position of Jennings, Dell, Hunt, or Pacheco. And for your situation,
you need 2 of them.
Thankfully, you're going to get an answer on either of these in this discussion. Tank Dell's a wonderful play this week against the Jaguars secondary. A really wonderful play. But again, the volume is always a decent enough concern. If Pacheco doesn't play, I think you will roll yourself into Hunt. But I think that I like Dell and Jennings a little bit more than Hunt and Pacheco this week. And I do like Dell in this matchup. But if Purdy plays, which we won't know until later in the day, which is going to be a problem, maybe we'll know a little bit earlier. I think that Jennings would be a great play. So I think where I'm at on this is Jefferson, Neighbors, Kupp, Dell, Pollard, and Tracy. Right now.
Same answer, yeah.
Right now, as we sit here today.
So Austin, I'm going to hit you with
Wait a minute. He says Bucky?
Bucky could be in that list before?
If you're giving me Bucky as a choice, Quincy, I should have read that. It's Jefferson, Neighbors, Kupp, Pollard, Tracy, Bucky.
Yes. And then you're not going to deal with the Kansas City problem.
All right.
Although that Kansas City could go off. So Austin, let's hit with this. Full disclosure on Chase Brown. I was so much on Team Moss that I almost like built up lots of reasons not to like Chase Brown. I wish I wouldn't have done that because I had
Well, I
Zach
love Dan
Moss and
Campbell
Chase
trolling.
Brown like almost drafted next to each other. I could have had better diversification, possibly have an extra couple of lineups out of my already stunning amount moving forward on the millionaires. That being said, I still know the talent level of Chase Brown, and I know the talent level of JT. I would never do this trade in real life. But for the playoff push moving forward, my fear with the Bengals is this. They're out of it. Are they going to carrying them like crazy? And it might just be a whole lot easier to just hand the ball off and, stop getting hit. So I see the argument for Chase Brown, but I also see the very realistic possibility that the Bengals points per game plummets. And then I think you basically end back in the spot of if that does happen, what really is the difference between Chase Brown and Taylor when neither of them score touchdowns? So
I mean,
I can be talked into this, but I'm also can easily be talked out of it.
Yeah, I would rather be on Chase Brown, but I'm not. It's weird that the guy wants the Vikings defense. I love
the Viking defense is a nothing burger.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like I would be on Chase Brown. I think for the playoff push, I'm definitely on Chase Brown. It just I don't know if that's the trade that I would want to do to get into Chase Brown. Quincy, and there was something down here from Trone before we get to that comment, Quincy. I love Dan Campbell for this very reason. He's so willing. Honest. And we saw this a couple years back during the first year where they knew they were out of the playoffs when they played Green Bay at night, but they knew they still wanted to beat Green Bay, so they went all out. It kept Green Bay out of the playoffs anyway, and took Green Bay out of the playoffs.
One of two things are happening tonight: we're going to win, or Green Bay's going to lose. Love that. That was the start of their dynasty that night.
So good. I love him.
The best part about this quote is, if I wanted to. Like, I don't even want to, is what he's saying there.
Yeah, he's like, I'm not even going to try. So start 2 wide receivers and 1 flex. Debo, Jennings, Waddle, Worthy, Monty, and Downs. Like I said, Monty has to play. For sure. Yeah. I mean, the matchup is so incredible that you have to play him. Debo.
So, Bob, do you think Waddle's for real? I mean, that's going to be part of this question here. Do you think Waddle's for real, or that was a fluke?
All right. So I don't think it's a fluke, but I also am not like gushing about Jalen Waddle. Okay. But what I do know is that when you look at the stat sheet, right, and you look at where the target distribution has been going for Miami, last week 9 targets went to Waddle. I just want to pull up this game. I just want to pull up this game real quick so we can check out that target distribution. So Waddle got 9 targets. I believe Jonnu was sitting there at like 6, maybe. And you can check on this for me too, Joe. And I think that when we look at these games, or when we look at what could happen this week, if Tua were to throw it 35 plus times, that the distribution will probably be very similar. And like I said, they're most likely going to have to pass it because they can't get really anything going in the ground. So just looking at the full box score right now, pulling up. So targets, you had Jonnu Smith with 11, Waddle with 9, Tyreek with 6, and Achane with 4. And then the other complement of players with a hodgepodge of other stuff. Okay. Tua only completed 29 passes, but if he's going to throw the ball 40 times, there is room for Waddle. There is room for Waddle within that matchup. So Where am I
I just think they're
leaning
going to
with?
freeze, though. I think they're going to freeze and not show up.
I mean, I can't. I'm only going off what the stat sheets say, and if Tua can throw the ball for 35 plus times, there's room for Waddle to be successful. If you're right, and he does freeze and only throws the ball for 25 times, then the room for Waddle goes down.
So down.
I think Jennings' volume is safe. Okay. Regardless of the matchup, I think that Jennings' volume this year is safe. So I think that I would have to start Jennings out of that group of players. His volume is comparable to other high-profile wide receivers in the league right now. I think it would be not a smart decision to sit him unless you have a similar player rolling out with similar volume. Okay, like the Cups, like we had in the last question with
Gotcha.
Cups.
So are you going worthy then?
No, I'm going Jennings, Waddle, and
Oh,
Monty.
you are going with Waddle.
Yeah,
See, I'm
yeah,
not
yeah.
going with Waddle. I'm going with Worthy. I'm going with Worthy or Debo. My fear of doing both of them is that the Giants' pass rush can nullify both of them. So I'm going to split my diff and go Jennings, Worthy, and Monty. I said diff, baby. And I really think that if you look at Kansas City, they need Pacheco like crazy, but they also need an infusion of youth and energy, and Worthy is that answer for them. So I do like that. Trey Lance could get you a rushing TD. He also could get you panic and run a safety through the back.
He could. He could. Steve, good to have you back. Absolutely crushed this week. Love to hear it. Devin Singletary for sneaky playoff waivers for 9 points. Second place, big money.
Love
lead.
it, Steve. Middle of the season, we weren't up that high.
So,
Love that we got there.
Josh Allen, Achane, Chase Brown, St. Brown, DJ Moore, Jonnu, Njoku, Hopkins, or Pacheco in the flex. The bench is Cooper, QJ, Goff. Thanks. Love the show. Appreciate the love, Steve. So
love the love.
The start is Jonnu. Okay.
Yeah.
Jonnu's volume, if you just follow that volume, Njoku similarly has the potential for a high amount of volume as well. So I'm not like writing out or writing down Njoku in this discussion, but I just think that the way that the trust that Tua has in Jonnu right now is just incredible.
I love it.
Just from from an optics perspective, just like watching it on the field. So I think you play Jonnu easily. So when it comes down to Hopkins or Pacheco, I could find myself, and again, you can't start QJ, you can't start Cooper because they're unreliable options. And I think where I'd fall, and Tyler, we spoke about it with Tyler earlier, is if Pacheco has clearance to play, you start Pacheco.
Mm-hmm.
If he doesn't, it's Hopkins.
Yeah.
And I think that answer is pretty.
I'd make an argument for QJ. I don't think they're going to throw him under a bus and disappear with him.
I don't think they will either. I don't. But I want to look at.
That also could be a shootout.
It could be. It absolutely could be. Just looking up DeAndre Hopkins' targets here. When we look at Hopkins' targets this year, they're very similar-ish to QJ. Don't get me wrong. Like that's kind of the discussion that you need to have. Is are you comfortable with the 5-ish targets that they're going to have? Like last week, since being a Chief, he has gotten 3, 9, 5, 4, and 6. So what we see here is a team that's probably going to be able to move the ball decently well against the Raiders, regardless of what running back plays, and a team that is going to have some high profile a field advantage, right? So the problem is Noah Gray has emerged to get touchdowns, which has kind of eaten into the potential for Hopkins. Travis Kelce is still there. So I'm not looking at QJ or Hopkins as a high yardage play this week. But if you're looking for a yardage play, it probably is QJ out of the three guys of QJ, Pacheco, or Hopkins. But I think that Hopkins is a little bit on the safer side. But if Pacheco plays, you have to play Pacheco.
That's basically it. All right, Justin, we're going to jump into your DD right now. And then, Nick, you're going to come back and be our first quick hit on the other side. Would y'all trade Dell or Harrison?
Jesse will be the quick hit on the other side.
For Shakir? With Allen as his quarterback, he wants to know if it's worth getting rid of Dell or Harrison for the stack. I don't think it is.
So, Jesse, there's a couple ways that you can look at this, right? Is the discussion that we've had about MHJ and Kyler Murray is the same thing that we've talked about with guys like Caleb Williams and DJ Moore. If their amount of passes that they throw go up, you are going to most likely have a successful game out of MHJ and Trey McBride and things like that. But the problem with MHJ is that he's one of those players right now that you plop him in your lineup, and if you don't have a better option, he's going to be your starter because there is a chance that he goes for 5 points. There's a chance that he goes for 18 points, but it really depends upon what that volume is going to look like. Now, we talked with Tyler a little bit earlier about Keon Coleman, and we have Keon Coleman, Curtis Samuel, and Shakir and Cooper all most likely going to be healthy in the next couple of weeks. So you're looking at Shakir as a player that has a very low ADOT. So, and the position that he plays, you're looking at him to take targets and do something with them. So coming down, I'm just going to pull up Shakir real quick. I think that Shakir is a reasonable play, but I couldn't move MHJ necessarily into Shakir straight up, I think, right now. Because of Keon Coleman's return potentially coming, Curtis Samuel healthy, you have Shakir there, then you have Dalton Kincaid sucking up a few targets as well. So the targets are going to kind of compress a little bit more around a couple different players as these players get healthy. And with Shakir's really low ADOT, he is going to have to do a lot with what he's been given. So let's say that he gets, let's say, Joe, that Shakir gets 6-7 targets. Okay. Let's just imagine that for a minute. But let's say his ADOT is 3. If he's not moving the ball
like 20 yards,
if he's not moving the ball with a good enough yak, it doesn't make any sense necessarily to move into him. So right now, Shakir's sitting with a 3.8 ADOT, okay, with approximately 6 to 7 targets a game, okay. So if you look at his the average per, you're looking at about 8 yards after catch. So you're looking at a potential of a maximum catch range of like 11 yards. Okay. So he's not like your downfield guy, 11 yards. So if he gets 6 of those catches for 11 yards apiece, sure, he's a great start. You're looking at 6 catches, 77 yards, something like that. I believe he threw up a similar stat line a couple weeks ago. But if those targets dip, and let's say he only gets 4, and he's not able to get any yak off those, that's where the struggle is. MHJ and Dell, I mean, similar situations, but different circumstances. Dell's not commanding a lot of targets, but I believe, didn't he go like 4 for 55 last week or something of that nature?
I believe that's about right. Yeah, because I almost nailed it exactly.
So Dell has a higher ADOT, but less yak. Okay, so that's a good position, a good enough position to be in if you're if you're Dell. And the matchup again against the Jaguars is a matchup that he could probably take advantage of, just thinking about how bad they've been on paper. And Harrison has about 14 as his A dot, gets about 6 targets a game, so one less than Shakir, and less Yak. So you can make the case that Shakir is a great option, Jesse, to move into. But if Josh Allen throws the ball, let's say 24 times over the course of the next couple of games, and they have Keon Coleman soaking up 3-4 targets, Curtis Samuel soaking up 4, Dalton Kincaid getting 6, Shakir might be the odd guy out, and I don't know if I'd want to give up Dell's potential and MHJ's potential to move into that, to be honest with you. It's reasonable to want to.
Yeah, Jesse, that was kind of a hard one to do as a deep dive because my gut answer was, I get that you want the stack, but that ain't worth it, dude. Like I said, I'm glad that Bob was able to give you the content to justify it as a deep dive. I know you sat around and waited for that one. Your next one looks like it'll have a little bit of a better answer. But in the meantime, we're off to quick hits. It should be Nick, isn't it?
No, Jesse.
I skipped one. Sorry about that. Okay.
Yeah. Jesse, Drake May, Rodgers, Kirk, Bryce Young, Winston. Okay, so let's talk about this. Bryce Young could be an option this week out of this group of quarterbacks, Jesse. Could be.
Do you trust someone who just blew his entire load?
I could, because the Bucs secondary isn't that great. So
fair enough.
I could. I could also make the case that I do like Winston this week, and I can also make a similar case for Drake May. Okay, Kirk Cousins is a good enough matchup in a game where they should be able to move the ball downfield really well. I think it's more likely that Kirk gets more touchdowns out of this whole crew of people. But again, they also have a better running option than most of these other teams. Sitting here then at Winston's a good enough play, but you always have to be leery of the Broncos for the interception market. So he could be one of those players that could get a decent amount of touchdowns, decent amount of yards, but those interceptions could hurt you. Again, I don't see that happening with Bryce Young and the Bucs, despite Bryce Young having all the problems that Bryce Young has.
So my answer, Jesse, here is it's Kirk by a mile. He's the only he's the most talented. You're going to score the most points, and it's going to be a shootout. So
I'd be on Kirk, then May, then Young, then Winston, then Rodgers, I think, in that discussion. Nick, Disley or Gray for the rest of the season? So Nick,
Disley, there's no competition for his targets.
Yeah, you have to go with Disley, despite Noah Gray's great game, and getting touchdowns recently. The targets are, Travis Kelce's still there. Travis Kelce is still Travis Kelce. I think that Gray is a definite worthwhile pickup. And Joe pointed out that Gray was a good worthwhile pickup about 2 or 3 weeks ago, actually. And so when I see that you have these options, Disley is going to be okay. They're going to be moving the ball in many different ways in this offense. If you want the touchdown play, I think Gray does give you that chance, but you are in competition with Travis Kelce. But as Joe said about Noah Gray, they're going to transition Gray at some point in time because Travis Kelce is on his way out and Noah Gray is on his way in. So Noah Gray is a good play, Nick. Quincy,
man, they're not letting you let this one down, Bob. You try to skate this one off and punt it. Which one are you picking? Disley or Pitts?
Disley or Pitts. Give me Disley still. I think
that'd be my answer too.
I think his targets are pretty safe. Again, 4 to 7 targets is probably a reasonable proposition for Disley.
There is a total baggage thing with this, though. We've all been burnt by Pitts before, and there's just so much risk of saying Pitts.
I'm always ready to be hurt again.
Pits it out.
I'm always ready to be hurt again. You know that.
Yes, you are.
Nick, is
Denver's a great start this week, Nick.
Yeah.
We got him as the second best defense this week.
it's a great start this week. Other potential options, definitely the Texans, Commanders, Dallas, good options as well. Potentially the Seahawks.
But long story short, Denver, good, yes.
Yeah. Denver, good. Denver, good, caveman, yes.
Oh, kicker question, I'm out.
Is Koo a good kicker for this week? I could go pick up Schrader on waivers. Yeah, Koo's good enough. Koo is good enough. But
Should be a shootout.
He gets, he's missed kicks. I like Dicker, the kicker, better. So
that's only because he got you a win last night. You're on that Dicker high.
I liked him last week too. I'd also be rolling out Jake Bates. Schrader makes sense as well. If you're comfortable moving into Schrader, that's fine. I think both are good enough. We appreciate all the love. Thank you, everybody in the chat right now. Who am I starting this week between Bijan, Pollard, Dobbins, and Tracy? I don't mind starting 3 running backs. It's Bijan, Pollard, and Tracy. If Dobbins can't go, and even if Dobbins can go, I do slightly lean that they might take it easy with Dobbins a little bit more. So I think
I don't know. That offense looked bad without him.
I think it's Bijan, Pollard. I think it's Bijan, Pollard, and Tracy pretty easily right now as we sit right here from sheer volume standpoint for Pollard. And a good matchup for both Tracy and Bijan. But I'd monitor that Dobbins injury for sure. Austin, good question.
Oh, I'm going Jono. I can't trust the Oakland passing game.
Oakland,
whatever. They're still San Diego too.
Oakland.
They're also still the Redskins. Don't change your stuff. You are what you are.
Oh, I bought at Marshall's gloves that had Washington football team on it. And I think it's like the only time that the Washington football team logo was on it. Bowers is a hard sit, man. Bowers is a hard sit, but the volume, if the volume's there, Bowers is amazing, but it's going to have to, we don't know if it's going to be there or not. So I think I'm on Jonnu. KJ, I own Montgomery and Dobbins. I also have Gus Bus rostered. Love that. Should I drop Tyler Algier for Jeremy McNichols for a spot start this week? Full PPR. It's worth
I'm riding Monty. I'm not risking it. I'm putting Monty and Gus out there or Monty and Dobbins. I'm not starting Nichols over either of them.
It's worth considering, but I'd be definitely moving with Gus and Monty and not moving on from Tyler Algier, KJ. But if you wanted to, it's not the worst play you can make at all. But Joe will tell you many, many reasons, as he has in the past, that Tyler Algier is the most valuable stash play for the stretch run.
Mm-hmm.
If something were to happen, he is the most valuable stash play.
So for maybe Madison, because that's likely to happen.
Maybe.
Or Mason.
Mason, yeah. Quincy, need 2 and 2 wide receivers, flex 3. So Pickens is one of the wide receivers I'm going with here. Javonte Williams is off. We're not trusting Javonte Williams ever again. He is the one player. He is the one player, everybody, that has earned the sit. Okay, out of any player in all leagues around the bus, when you have every team in the league playing, he has earned the sit.
Yeah, that's not even no fight.
Okay. So where this then comes down to me is that I'm definitely starting Pickens and Bucky. Okay.
Yes.
So Pickens in my wide receivers position. Bucky then goes in one of the flex positions.
Bob, you're only sitting one. Of that group, you're only sitting. He gave us 7 names.
And we need to sit.
Am I counting wrong? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Yeah, so we're sitting 2. Sorry. You're sitting 2. So you're sitting Javonte and
he gave us 8.
Which one am I miscounting? Either way.
Give us 8.
So Javonte Williams is the easy sit for me. Valdez is another easy sit, and Robinson's health probably takes care of it. How much do you hate Marvin Harrison Jr.?
Well, I mean, again, there's a lot of ifs in the Brian Robinson situation, but if Brian Robinson plays, he's definitely a guy that could be rostered and played right now. I'm looking at the Rams for a moment. I just want to see something, okay?
All right.
Looking at the Rams for a moment. Okay, yeah. You can't start Scantling. You
No.
can't start Javonte Williams this week. Not enough optics on either of them. So I think then, yeah, I think it. So wait, hold on. 1, 2. Yeah, and if B Rob's not healthy, you got to bench him. So it would be Myers, Bucky, MHJ, Debo, and Pickens. But I would easily go back and forth between Debo and Brian Robinson Jr. out of that group of people. KJ, should I drop Leggett for Thielen, Vele, or Westbrook Akine full PPR? KJ, Joe will give you many reasons over the course of the last several weeks that Leggett is worth keeping over any of those guys.
Although Westbrook is starting to tingle my mind.
Tingle your mind. But I could find many reasons to like Vele, and I could also find many reasons to like Westbrook Akine. Out of the grouping, Westbrook Akine definitely has the touchdown flash. You can't pass up a team touchdown total like that. Just the targets aren't where we want them to be at for Westbrook Akine. Vele, again, similar-ish kind of situation, but a different type of player, a different type of role on the team. Vele had a good week this week, also has had some bad games as well. He also had a touchdown as well recently. So I think I'm on Vele or Westbrook Akine out of those guys. And I don't want to go full hog on the Westbrook Akine, but I do think he has a little bit more value than Vele right now. But
He does.
I like Bo Nix more as a quarterback, so I would lean Vele, but Akine has more spice attached to him, I think.
Listen, when the Bo Nix love ends, you'll realize all three of them have the equal level of talent at quarterback. They're all tier 4. All 4 of them. But the Boner Nix love will go away. Jesse, we already answered this one. It's Cowboys defense by a mile.
No, it won't. No, it won't. No, it won't. It won't go away.
Tron Force. I offered Tyreek for Chase Brown, but they don't want to do it anymore. My running backs are Monty.
They want more.
Monty, Barkley, Mostert. My other receivers are Cup, McLaurin, JSN, Mooney, D-Hop. Offering Tyreek and D-Hop or Mooney. I think Mooney would be too much for Chase Brown. D-Hop is fine with me to get rid of. I would not get rid of Mooney, though. That Atlanta passing schedule is just too spicy to pass up.
I think with your grouping of wide receivers, that it's really smart to move into Chase Brown right now, especially because you can have Barkley, Monty, and Chase Brown starting on your team. I'd do Tyreek and D-Hop. I would.
Yeah.
D-Hop's targets aren't where Mooney's targets was before the injury. I'm easily on Tyreek and D-Hop, and I think you're getting great. I think you're getting a great player with just as much upside as Tyreek.
And Tron, maybe you get lucky and that guy has Gesicki you can take off of him.
Yeah, and you're not.
He's a great stash for playoffs.
I was thinking on dropping Kyler for Darnold, Stafford, or Carr. I think that's reasonable. I really do, and I'd pick up Stafford. Stafford's matchup this week should be great. I mean, without looking too much into things, when you
don't need to squint to see that one.
When you have Puka and Kupp against the secondary that has been so badly injured as the Saints were, that got basically picked apart by Jameis Winston, it's an easy Stafford for me before Kyler in that discussion. Austin, pick 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 1 flex. Cook, KW3, Bijan, Chase Brown. So I'm going to start with Bijan and Chase Brown.
Yeah, that's easy.
That's the starting position. Bijan, Chase Brown, no questions asked. Especially, I mean, even against the Steelers defense, but the Steelers defense hasn't been the Steelers defense of old recently. Coming then into the discussion, I can't see a factor in my mind that would make me want to bench JSN right now with the volume that he's gotten. JSN was a big factor a couple weeks back where I was saying, I don't know. But again, the Metcalf return hasn't hurt him as much. He's still an integral component, the integral component of this offense, it feels like right now. And I think that JSN is going to be my first wide receiver in. Next is Jefferson. Jefferson is the
Mhm.
next wide receiver in for sure. Then we have a discussion on our hands, right?
Well,
The tight
John
end,
over Pitts. We've already
the
said that
tight
like
end
3
is
times
Jonnu,
today.
but then the flex comes down to, and this is a good problem to have, Austin. It was one of the
That's
problems we
scary
talked to
Terry
you about.
Cook.
Is you're talking about really good players instead of not so great, right? So the discussion comes down to this then. Looking at these matchups, Higgins is going to be decently involved against the Steelers for sure.
If he
Garrett
plays.
Wilson isn't going to lose many targets against the Seahawks, okay? BTJ is a real interesting one here, okay? Really interesting one here because the Texans have allowed a decent amount of deep passes, right?
Mm-hmm.
A decent amount of deep passes. And when we pull up BTJ's ADOT, it's around 12. So I'm very curious about BTJ with Trevor Lawrence. The only thing that makes me scared about BTJ with Trevor Lawrence is the amount of pressure that Houston can generate on defense. And Jaguars' offensive line has some problems. So even with that great ADOT,
Mm-hmm.
having a great game here, but it concerns me. So I think that where
Bob, I already see this.
Go ahead.
Next year, BTJ is going to be the receiver that's undervalued more than anyone else.
Probably.
No doubt. Sorry, I took your wheels out.
No. I mean, I think my initial lean, if all components are healthy, would be Bijan, Chase Brown, Jefferson, JSN, Jonnu, and BTJ.
All right.
If all components are healthy.
And Steve, sorry for not making this clear. Our answer is if Pacheco starts, Pacheco's the answer.
Yeah. If he obviously.
Yeah.
But if you're looking at it on Thursday, if you're looking at it on
they're
Thursday,
both in the same game. He has to figure it out Friday morning.
Right, no. But if you're looking on Thursday and it's looking like they're saying, oh, he's limited, I think it's an easy pivot to Hopkins. Need one out of these quarterbacks here. Joe will make a narrative for you that Tua will cramp up, it will be cold, and he won't throw for more than 30 times a game. I think if that's the case,
cramp's the politically correct word there.
I think if that's the case, you can easily see a conversation where Winston throws for 40 times against the Broncos, because Nick Chubb probably won't be able to run against them. But I think May's a nice sneaky play against the Colts.
Yeah, Colts are soft. Sorry, George play. It's true.
I like May out of those guys. Start 2, May, Russell Wilson, or Tua. I'm on Russell Wilson and May. But I do think that Tua is going to have a good game. I don't believe that Joe is going to be accurate in that description there. Start Kyler, Russ, or Kirk.
Cousins. I'm going with Cousins.
Yeah, I'm on Kirk. I'm on Kirk over on that, Jesse. Nick, start 2 wide receivers this week. I'm on Ra, Dell, Worthy, Devonta, and Reed. Well, it's Amon Ra to start.
Yeah, obviously.
He might not have a great game, but it's still you're not benching Amon Ra. For everything that I said about Dell, I think that Dell could be a really valuable start against the Jaguars this week. Worthy, has potential against the Raiders. Devonta Smith is always worth a conversation if healthy against the Ravens. But the spicy pick here, Nick, and I know we talked about it a little bit yesterday, is Jaden Reed. We talked earlier in the episode that Tucker Kraft will probably assume some of the targets of Romeo Doubs as the game progresses. But and while the matchup isn't great for Reed, if targets are opened up, it would be an interesting proposition to send those targets to Reed. So I think that Dell and Amon-Ra for sure out of this grouping of players. And then I think it's Steelers. And then, you just need 2, but Reed might be able to flex into that spot where Dell is. It just really, I'm not sure how much they will pivot to Dontavian Wicks in this game. That's kind of the only problem with Reed here. Quincy, should I start Jonnu over Pitts and Disley? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The volume is there to support that. And Quincy, sitting one out of those guys, it's Debo for me. It's Debo for me. The others get a good amount of volume. It is definitely.
I still love Debo. I would start. You have to sit one of the two Niners, so I guess it is Debo.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I just don't see. I just don't see anything coming up there. But Joe, I just want to take this. I just want to take this time to look at and share with the team players here what we were talking about yesterday. Is that when you're
before
going
you do that, let's do our last deep dive, and then we'll.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So the last deep dive here came from Jesse. Thank y'all. 2 receivers, 1 flex. Who would you start between CD, London, Dell, Harrison, QJ, Tracy, and Pacheco? So very similar type questions. I'm on CD. I think that the fact that the worst quarterback might actually help him. I am also, again, the London target share is crazy, and I think that's going to be a shootout. So I'm probably going CD, London, and then if Pacheco plays Pacheco, if not, I'm going Tracy, because I am and forever will be a running back whore.
So Jesse, where I fall on that, you've heard all of my opinions about most of these players as we've gone through the episode. I think you have to sit MHJ. I think you have to sit QJ out of that grouping of players right now. I can make a very good case for Tank Dell this week, but I don't think that you can bench either CD or London unless you hear terrible information about Cooper Rush or something like that. CD seems to be locked into at least 10 targets a game. Okay. At least. And he's going to catch all of them unless they're super hospital balls. So you're looking at a minimum floor for CD that is still above 12 points. Okay. And when you're looking, and while that's not the 20 points that we want out of CD, it's still a good enough floor. Dell's floor is somewhere in the range of 8 to 12. And we talked about this 2 weeks ago, actually, when it was the Monday night game that was Dallas versus Houston, when we talked about the potential floors and ceilings for both CD Lamb and Tank Dell. Both situations against teams that are susceptible to pass, Dell is a good enough play. When it comes to London, Joe's absolutely right. I mean, as much as we've shit on Drake London's capabilities as a pass catcher.
Oh, Kurt, he also has Jennings in this group. If that impacts you at all.
Over the course of this year, I don't think that you can sit a guy like Drake London where they're projecting. What's the projected point total in that game, Joe?
Which one?
The Falcons-Chargers game. Is it going to be like 24-19 or 24-21, something like that?
23-24.
Okay, so I can't reasonably see where if Kirk Cousins is averaging, let's see, if Kirk Cousins is in the discussion of, let me pull him up real quick. So I appreciate you sticking around, Jesse, here for this, because we're going to give you some good information on this one, I hope. So when you're looking at this, outside of the Denver game, okay, he's had almost outside the Denver game in week 1 at the Steelers where he looked like ass. He's approached 220, 250 yards each game with 2 great blow-up games, both against New Orleans and Tampa, right? But he's completing in most of those games above 20 passes, and he's throwing in those games at least, 25 to 30-ish passes a game. So I feel that if London is going to dominate that target share, right, that you're set up for a really good performance from London, okay? Whereas Dell's, while the discussion with Dell isn't as strong, You know,
Mhm.
it's still there because Kirk and Stroud have a similar like output in a given. They can have a similar output in a given week. I do honestly think you have to take QJ and MHJ off this list. They're not an option this week from these other guys.
Oh yeah.
So now, really, Joe, it's down for me to Dell, Tracy, and Pacheco. And Tracy's matchup, I feel, is better than
Well,
Pacheco's.
Jennings is here too. So just to throw that, Jennings is too. He just didn't have it in question.
That's fine, but I think he's starting Jennings. But the fact remains is Tracy's matchup is really good,
Yeah.
right? It's better than either of the. It's better than the
Breaking
Chiefs
news
matchup.
from Steve. Pacheco full practice day, ready to roll.
Yeah, I mean, guys, it's probably Pacheco over Tracy, but I see Tracy having a good game here. But Pacheco is probably going to get more valuable looks in the red zone, which I don't think that the Giants will get to the red zone. So that's the discussion point there. So I think I'm solidly on CD in London, and I'm really much waffling between Dell, Pacheco, and Tracy. But with that news from Steve, I think you have to roll out. I think you have to roll into Pacheco there.
So low
like
darts. Going right off everything Bob said, dude. It's Tracy over Rachaad White. I mean, it just is.
So
Tracy has no target competition, no competition really. Period internally. Rachaad is slowly hanging on for dear life, but he's still losing the battle. And to me, it's Tracy.
I disagree that Rachaad's losing the battle. It's just a different battle that he's fighting now.
All right.
We know what Rachaad White is, and we've known it all season, right?
Yeah.
Anybody that's been with us all season,
well,
we have had many discussions about dropping Rachaad White at various points in time. And we've had many discussions about Bucky taking over, and then Sean Tucker blows up for 30 friggin' fantasy points the 1 week, which was just like, are you serious right now? So yeah, I think I'm solidly on Tracy top 5, but I can find you many reasons against the Panthers that I think that Rachaad's going to have a good enough game. In DFS lineups, I'm absolutely going to be rolling a DFS lineup. I did it last week, and I should have done it the week before, and I'm going to do it this week again because they're so friggin' cheap with Bucky and Rachaad, and full sending the wide receivers.
Okay, and I get that.
I think it would be irresponsible at this point to ignore that the Panthers are that bad, but also that Kareem Hunt didn't do as well as we thought they were going to do against them. So maybe they're not that bad, but the type of running back they face is very important. And both of these running backs, one of them with Bucky and Rachaad at least, one of them does good sometimes in certain coverages and certain looks, and the other one does better in other times. And the coaches are using them that way. And it's very interesting to see that. Quincy, love the love. Thank you very, very much. But we got to get to Z's first here. Atlanta or Green Bay defense for Week 16. Vele or Coleman, Z. Anthony Richardson or Jane Daniels, Week 16. Jane shat the bed against the Eagles first time around. Z.
So this sounds like we have a Week 15 bye, my dude, and congratulations for that.
I love to hear this. I love to hear that you are.
So the first question of which defense do we want for Week 16? Atlanta is playing the Giants. Green Bay is playing New Orleans. My gut's telling me face the Giants. They're trying to get the first pick overall. You're not going to have many points scored against you. So that's my first gut there. We look at the receiver matchup. Buffalo is home against New England, and Denver is going to be at the Chargers. I can make an argument for Vele. I think I might actually. And then the final one there, Richardson or Jalen. Indy is going to be at Tennessee.
So
Washington is at Philly. So for me, it's going to be Richardson that week.
Before you continue with that, Green Bay is my defense, and here's why. Atlanta's not causing enough turnovers.
That's fair.
The Saints are going to be passing the ball in this game, a decent clip, probably 26, 28 attempts by Carr. There's going to be more opportunities for Green Bay to be successful in getting a turnover in that game. I think I'd roll more likely into Green Bay.
Okay.
Valet or Coleman. Valet is a floor play. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Valet is an absolute floor play. When we look at those matchups further on in the season, you could see certain matchups for Keon Coleman favoring him better. But Valet is coming on, and I do think that I would start Valet, but he is a floor play, not a ceiling play. Anthony Richardson or Jane Daniels week 16. Who does the Colts play week 16?
Colts are playing against Tennessee at Indianapolis.
I'm still starting Jane Daniels.
At Philly.
Yes. One of the things
Correct, that one's home. That one's the home one against Philly.
One of the things that I do know about Tennessee is while Tennessee isn't a good team, they do like to keep things in front of them. And one of the things that Anthony Richardson doesn't like to do is keep things in front of him.
Fair way of putting that.
He likes to throw it deep. Tennessee's going to be able to stop that, and Tennessee's probably going to be able to get to him in certain ways. And while the matchup for Jane Daniels isn't fantastic week 16 against Philadelphia, there is no unequivocal way that they're going to allow him to shit the bed at home in week 16 when they're probably going to be fighting for a playoff spot. It just can't happen. My wide receivers are Flowers, J-Mo, Devonta, Coleman, and Westbrook. Should I go matchup based in the playoffs or start the studs? I would still go matchup based. Okay.
Always go matchup based.
Well, not always, but out of this grouping of players, there's no unequivocal stud that I see outside of maybe Flowers there that would be a mostly starter. What I would look at here, especially when it comes to J-Mo, is I would be looking to see what kind of pass attempts that defense is allowing, because J-Mo's ADOT is really high. And so that's indicative of a player that's going downfield a lot, and that can expose teams that aren't defending the deep ball well. So that's my first kind of look on J-Mo. If you're looking at matchups and you're considering matchups, don't just look at the number that you see on ESPN or that you see on Yahoo and say, oh, it's 14th ranked, it's 8th ranked. That doesn't really paint a clear picture of what you're dealing with in the wide receiver market, because J-Mo's targets aren't going to be there. Coleman's targets aren't going to be there. Westbrook's targets aren't going to be there. And the targets, when I say this, we're looking at targets that are in that 4 to 6 range from J-Mo, Coleman, Westbrook, unequivocally, right? Then you look at Devonta Smith in a passing offense that is very low volume, Z. So when I look at this and I say, look at the matchups, those are the matchups that I'm looking at. I'm looking at for Flowers, and especially, I'm looking at, is this defense keeping things in front of them? Because if so, Zay is probably going to feast. If not, Bateman is. Okay. Yep. Looking at Coleman, if this offense is keeping things in front, or if the defense is keeping things in front of them, Samuel and Shakir are going to eat. If not, Coleman will. J-Mo and Coleman are basically the same. Okay. Yep. Essentially the same, with very similar situations and good quarterback play. Westbrook-Akine is a little bit different. Westbrook-Akine does get some long shot touchdowns, but he can be used intermediary, but he's not used on first downs, right? He's not looked at first downs. J-Mo's not looked at first downs. Coleman's not looked at first downs. Flowers is. So I think Flowers is going to end up starting for you more times than not over the course of the season. But you've got players that are big boom guys. And when we say boom or bust, we're saying boom or bust not because for any 1 week that they're going to be terrible. It's just that the way that they play dictates, and the targets that they get dictate that that's going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think you're in a good situation there, but you're definitely looking at more boom, hopeful coming down. 1-5 now in 4th place. I'm on a winning streak, 6 in a row. My team is crushing people. Quincy, I love to hear that. And this is the thing.
Quincy, we built this for people like you, man. We want to have everyone be a winner.
Rock and roll, baby. One of the things that I want to mention before we go off the air, because I'm not going to be on tomorrow. Joe's going to do hopefully do a power hour tomorrow at 3:45.
Yeah, I'm going to do it at 5 tomorrow, guys, just to let you guys all know. 5 o'clock tomorrow.
So Joe's going to be on at 5 tomorrow. But for anybody still in the chat and anybody still watching right now, one of the things that when you're looking at these wide receiver markets, and it was something that I talked about with Joe the other day, one of the things you want to definitely cross-reference, and we'll get to your question, Jonathan, in a moment, is targets relative to the amount of yards that quarterback is passing, okay? So there are going to be players and the potential for touchdowns. So there are going to be players that on a week-to-week basis, you're going to see pop off in the stat sheets. David Moore, I think, did that this week. We saw Jalen Waddle, Jordan Addison pop off this week as well. DJ Moore and Keenan Allen. And one of the things to look for when you're looking at these wide receivers moving forward is taking how many targets they're going to get a game and looking at what's the average that the quarterback is going to be passing, right? So if you're looking at a matchup that's going to be primarily running based, like just let's look at a matchup here, Joe. Where do we see a primary running back game?
Detroit.
The Detroit game.
The Giants should be running the ball. Are you talking about both sides or just one offense?
Both sides.
All right. So of all for I'm still in week 16. Let me.
Sorry. Okay.
So we look at for week
Eagles,
14
Ravens.
or week 13.
Eagles, Ravens.
Yeah, that's a running game. Yeah.
Okay. When we look at it, Eagles, Ravens in the running game. Those
Still saying by Detroit, Chicago though.
Those teams, Ravens have a good rush defense. Eagles have a good pass defense. It's most likely that those two teams are going to be running the ball a decent amount. So when we look at where the fair share of targets are going to go for wide receivers, you're probably going to see Jalen Hurts pass for probably 24 attempts, 220 yards, because the Ravens defense can be susceptible to that. But I'm looking at like about at least 24 pass attempts from Jalen Hurts. From the Ravens, we're probably going to be looking at probably 19 to 22 pass attempts. So when you look at where those targets are, if you're looking at a guy like Rashad Bateman, who's not really a part of the target share, you're taking a huge risk running Rashad Bateman out there in a game like that. And that's not based off Bateman's game. That's just based off of his performance.
And that's the thing with the all or nothing guys.
You're welcome, Z. We appreciate it. And it happens too. When you have guys like this, it just takes a little bit of time, because Joe and I do this with our DFS lineups. And, we did it with our underdog lineups this past year, going out there, and, we're sitting in a good position to set ourselves up to get into some of the playoffs.
We're going to have some big money going down in week 17 for sure.
I really love to hear that. Jonathan, do I trade Kareem Hunt and Jerry Jeudy for Jonathan Taylor, or Hunt and Odunze for Taylor? I'm moving Hunt and Odunze for Taylor.
That's right.
I think I do it pretty easily, Jonathan, but Taylor's not as much of a smash as he could be right now, because Anthony Richardson does hold him back. Okay. And there's often very much times negative game script for the Colts. So that really holds Jonathan Taylor back a little bit more. So I wouldn't want to give up Jerry Jeudy, because Jerry Jeudy is always involved with this offense right now. Odunze I'm willing to take a chance on Odunze, but like I said, Caleb Williams' passing volume needs to still clip above 35, 40 targets for Odunze to be relevant, because his target share on this team is not high. So I'm willing to move Hunt and Odunze for Taylor. If that trade is on the table today, I'm doing it today. And I'm doing it right now, actually, Jonathan, if that's the option. So, Joe, anything for the team players today?
Well, like I said, biggest thing is we're going to be starting at a different time here tomorrow. We'll be at 5:00 tomorrow. And then, happy Thanksgiving, y'all. Let's go win some football games. Let's go get you guys in your leagues and, be with us. We are here. We're also, by the way, we're not turning off just when fantasy football turns off. We will be live a little bit less often, but we still will be live consistently throughout the year. And when we get in the off season, we get a little bit outside of football every once in a while. Bob loves talking food, especially food in different cities.
I actually have. So we had a little Thanksgiving dinner here at school. And I've got this plate to bring home. It's turkey. This thing is friggin' fire. For anybody watching right now, this is apples, cinnamon, and yams baked together in just absolute deliciousness. This is some gluten-free, dairy-free stuffing. It doesn't look appetizing, but it's really delicious.
All right.
And the potatoes are dairy-free as well because I can't have milk. But absolutely something that I recommend. Go for that. Go forth and eat yams. Is my
Go forth and eat yams. That's your Thanksgiving play there, guys. All right. Bob, you say anything, I'm hitting this button.
I'm good. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Welcome to Local Football Flavor, connecting the fan bases of the NFL.